Hello, and welcome back once again for another episode of World of Guns, Gun Disassembly. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Smith & Wesson Model 3 Schofield revolver. The Smith & Wesson Model 3 is a single-action cartridge-fed top-break revolver produced by Smith & Wesson from circa 1870 to 1815. 1870 to 1915, excuse me. And was recently again offered as a reproduction by both Smith & Wesson and Uberti. It was produced in several variations and sub-variations, including both the Russian model, so named because it was supplied to the military of the Russian Empire, and the Schofield model, named after Major George W. Schofield, who made his own modifications to the Model 3 to meet his perceptions of the U.S. Cavalry's needs at the time. Smith & Wesson incorporated these modifications into an 1875 design they named after the Major, planning to obtain significant military contracts for the new revolver. The Model 3 was originally chambered for the 44 Smith & Wesson American and 44 Russian cartridges, and typically did not have the cartridge information stamped on the gun, as is standard practice for most commercial firearms today. Model 3 revolvers were later produced in an assortment of calibers, including 44 Henry rimfires, 4440, 3244, 3844, and the 45 Schofield cartridge. Smith & Wesson produced large numbers of the Model 3 in 3 distinct models for the Russian Empire by special order. Smith & Wesson nearly went bankrupt as a result of their Russian contract production, as the Imperial government assigned a number of engineers and gunsmiths to reverse engineer the Smith & Wesson design, and then began to produce copies of the revolver both on their own at the arsenal in Tula and by contracting with other manufacturers in Germany and elsewhere in Europe. The Russian and European copies of the Smith & Wesson Model 3 revolver were generally very high quality, but considerably cheaper than Smith & Wesson produced revolvers. This led to the Imperial government canceling the order for significant quantities of Smith & Wesson made revolvers and delaying or refusing payment for the handguns that were already delivered. The U.S. Army adopted the 44 Smith & Wesson American caliber Model 3 revolver in 1870, making the Model 3 revolver the first standard-issue cartridge-firing revolver in U.S. service. Most military pistols until that point were black powder cap and ball revolvers, which were, by comparison, slow, complicated, and susceptible to the effects of wet weather. In 1872, the Army adopted the Colt Model 1873 single-action Army as its standard service revolver. In 1875, the U.S. Ordnance Board granted Smith & Wesson a contract to outfit the military with Model 3 revolvers incorporating the design improvements of Major George W. Schofield, known as the Schofield revolver, providing that they could make the revolvers fire the .45 Colt ammunition already in use by the U.S. military. Smith & Wesson instead designed their own, slightly shorter .45 caliber round, the .45 Schofield, otherwise known as the .45 Smith & Wesson. When it became obvious in the field that the two cartridges would not work interchangeably in the Schofield, although they both worked in the Colt, the U.S. government adopted the shorter .45 Schofield cartridge as the standard cartridge. Despite the change, old stocks of the longer .45 Colt rounds in the supply line caused the Army to drop most of the Schofields and continue on with the Colt. Many of the Smith & Wesson Model 3 Schofield revolvers saw service in the Indian Wars, the Spanish-American War, and the Philippine-American War. Like other Smith & Wesson Model 3s, they were also reportedly popular with lawmen and outlaws in the Old West, and were reportedly used by Jesse James, Bob Ford, John Wesley Hardin, Pat Garrett, Teddy Roosevelt, Virgil Earp, Billy the Kid, and many others. The Smith & Wesson Model 3 revolver was famously used by Wyatt Earp during the OK Corral gunfight with the Clanton Gang. An engraved gold-plated new model number 3 with pearl grips was presented to sharpshooter Annie Oakley in the 1890s by her husband Frank Butler. While the standard barrel length was 7 inches, many Schofields were purchased as surplus by distributors and had the barrel shortened to 5 inches and were refinished in nickel. After the Spanish-American War of 1898, the U.S. Army sold off all their surplus Schofield revolvers. The surplus Schofield revolvers were reconditioned by wholesalers and gunsmiths at professional factory quality level, with a considerable number offered for sale on the commercial market with a 5-inch barrel, as well as the standard barrel size of 7 inches. Modern reproductions of the Smith & Wesson Model 3 revolver are made by a number of companies, including most notably Smith & Wesson themselves, as well as the Italian arms maker Uberti and Army San Marco. And now let's take a look at the demonstration of how to peel strip the Schofield revolver. You'll notice at the bottom of the video it's telling you each part that's being manipulated at the time. There are a total of 48 parts to the entire revolver. Again, as with most weapons of this time period, a lot of these parts were handmade and hand-fitted. Another amazing piece of machinery. Lots of very small parts in here too. Design's getting more complicated as time passes. And that's the entire disassembly. Putting her back together in reverse order. So many tiny intricate parts. Obviously cleaning the Schofield just entailed having to break the revolver open, clean out the chambers and the barrel, but I would certainly not want to have to break this pistol down into all of its component parts. And that's it. Now let's take a look at the operation of the Schofield. Beautiful model. As you can see, the sight channel is very small. Very hard for me to even manipulate it so you can see. But you've got a very small front sight and a very small blade in the rear. So to operate the Schofield, this is a single action revolver. You would cock the hammer back and fire. Chamber is 6 rounds. this point, you would break the revolver open, eject the empty cartridges, load 6 more, and you're ready to fire again. Excellent design. And that's it for this video. I appreciate your viewing. Please like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time with another episode of World of Guns.